Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Platting Board meeting on 9/4 of 2024. Can I please have a call to order? Got it.
Ryan Morman.
Here.
Skylar Quinn.
Here.
Patrick Jones.
Here.
Ashley Ploy.
Here.
Kyle Merka.
Present.
Brenda Butler. Here. There you go. Stacy Wessel and Sarah Catherine Bryan are excused absent. You have a quorum. Oh, Miss Pennington is not here.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes from July 17th, 2024?
I move to approve the minutes.
And can I have a second? Motion to approve, moved by Mr. Quinn and by Mr. Jones. Any corrections? Oh, I should have said that first, I'm sorry. Any corrections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Are there any disclosures?
Mr. Chair, I would like to disclose that I do live in the neighborhood in reference to case S12794, but can be impartial.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Merka. Are there any objections or questions from any other board member regarding Mr. Merka's statement? I'd like to have a motion to approve to participate with no conflict in case S12794. Is that correct, Mr. Merka? Correct. May I have a motion to approve? Motion moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Jones. Thank you. All right. Any other disclosures?
I have a disclosure. Case S12794, one of the representatives is Triad, a company that I have worked with on an ongoing basis. So just want to put that out there, but I don't have any involvement in this case.
Thanks, Mr. Quinn. Any objections from the board? Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve Mr. Quinn to participate in S12974, who and which works with Triad Engineering, but not in regards to this case? Mr. Jones approved, and Mr. Merka seconded. Good evening, Ms. Pennington. Thank you for coming. We are just going through disclosures in regard to the upcoming cases. Would you have any disclosures?
No, I do not, thank you.
Ms. Pennington does not have any disclosures? Okay, we do have two more disclosures. Sorry, we're just going through the paperwork here. Ms. Ashley,
I as well work with Triad, but again, not on this case, so it shouldn't have any bearing.
okay.
Oh.
You got the paper?
Do you have the paper in
Yes.
front of you?
Yep, if you want to read it.
Are you just reading that I'm absent?
Yeah, so it'd be Ashley will abstain from voting on resolution.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I was not here, so Ashley will abstain from voting on Resolution 2024-007. So I was absent from the July 17th meeting with case S-12-765.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Again, for me, Mr. Mormon, I will also have to abstain from voting on Resolution 2024-77, as I was absent from the July 17th meeting when case S-12765 was heard. Okay, and now may we please have a motion to approve the consent agenda? The motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Jones. Thank you. And anyone wishing to pull an item for discussion or hearing?
If there's any discussion or any
Yeah.
questions about the
Any discussion or questions? All right, thank you. All right, heading into the meeting now. Here on September 4th, 2024, the Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for its regular meetings, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is, 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission's Rules of Procedure. That is, A, petitioners, including all his/her representatives, are given 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. B, representatives of groups, community council, PTAs, etc. are given 5 minutes. And C, individuals are allotted 3 minutes. Number 3, when your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Number 4, any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the board's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 21.03.050A.4.A. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may within 20 days file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with section 21.03.050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. Okay. We'd like to call forward Oops. Yep, the staff presentation on first case, case S12793.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the case of S12793, this is a request to modify plat note number 14 from plat 2004-91, Rabbit Creek View and Rabbit Creek Heights subdivision. The petitioner is requesting the plat note modifications to allow for direct driveway access to Carl Road from 3 lots along Marvin Circle. Private development traffic engineering support the request to modify plat note number 14. There were 5 public comments that were received in support and 1 comment not in favor. For staff analysis, staff has evaluated the criteria and found that condition A has been met. At the time of the original plats were recorded in 1970, the design envisioned Carl Street to function as a true collector for the subdivision, and requirements to improve all the subdivided right-of-way to municipal standards was not required at that time. The current daily traffic numbers along Carl Street are much less than what was originally designed in the subdivision plat. Carl Street is currently a 24-foot gravel roadway with drainage ditches. Marvin Circle is not currently constructed to municipal standard, and access from said street would require construction of the road. Allowing the 3 lots to access Carl Street with adherence to municipal traffic standards for driveway spacing and grade limitations will allow for safe traffic and maneuvering onto Carl Street. Traffic engineering has stated in their comments that the driveways will be limited to a maximum width of 20 feet. Staff has found that condition B has been met. Modification of the plat note will not have a negative effect on neighboring properties. It's only applicable to lots 6A, 7A, and 8A. All lots subject to the plat note modification have access directly to Carl Street, and the existing Marvin Circle access remains as secondary access if desired or if the owner improves Marvin Circle. So traffic engineering and private development departments did not have any objections to the removal modification of the plat note is what it is, a modification. The right-of-way department sent comments objecting to the modification of the plat note, although it pertains to the undeveloped limited access road to access lots 4A and 5A. Access from Marvin Circle for lots 6A, 7A, and 8A would require development to full municipal standards, not a limited access road design. The owners of lot 4A and 5A will not be granted access to Carl Street as there is no street frontage. Staff finds that condition C has been met. Plat 2004-91 would continue to meet the approval criteria for the subdivision. If the subject plat note is modified, the existing subdivision still facilitates the orderly and efficient layout and use of the land to the maximum extent feasible. All the lots have frontage and access onto Carl Street, and a driveway permit will be required, and drainage will be addressed in that, as well as any building permits after for said properties. With that being said, the department recommends approval of the request to amend the plat note subject conditions 1 and 2A on staff, or on page 3 of the staff packet. The wording for the modification there is under 2A, and that's where it talks about shall be reviewed and approved by the municipal traffic engineering department, and access to other lots will require improvements to Marvin Circle to current municipal standards. I can answer any questions, and the petitioner is here tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. Are there any questions for staff?
I have one question, Mr. Chair. On page 23, it's a memorandum, and it states that access to all other lots will require improvements to Marvin Circle to current municipal standards. It is just referencing those 2 lots, 4A and 5A. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, Mr. Merker. Can you word that again? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on page 23, at the very bottom of the page, the very last sentence, access to all other lots will require improvements to Marvin Circle to current municipal standards.
Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at the map under page, I'll find that. Let's turn to page 7, and then 6 is a mirror image without the aerial. So we can see there that Marvin Circle has other lots other than the 3 in question. On the east side there's 1, 2, 3 other lots that have access to Marvin Circle, as well on the west side, the two lots, which are 4A and 5A that I spoke about before. So any of those to be developed fully and including the ones that were before us tonight, Marvin Circle would have to be improved to a municipal standard, yes.
Okay, yeah, when I read that last sentence on page 23 the first time, I wondered if it was
Yeah.
a larger umbrella, but
It just pertains to these three lots which access onto Carl. Anything else in that cul-de-sac is going to require a road to be built.
Thank
for
you.
Martin Circle.
Thank you, Mr. Merca. Any other questions from the board to staff? Hearing none, may the petitioner please come forward. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and spell it. Oh, Robert, can you please turn on the mic? There should be a little button up there.
Cool.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Robert Wing, petitioner's representative.
Can you please spell your name for the record?
Robertwing.
Thank you. And you are allotted, I believe, 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for taking a look at this today. Yeah, I mean, in general, everything is, there are no objections from the municipality side except for right-of-way. Their concerns were limited to other lots that were not a part of this, part of 6A, 7A, or 8A. So I think in general, I'd really look to have this approved, and like to save the rest of my time for any sort of comments that I might need to follow up on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wing. Any questions from the board to Mr. Wing?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you speak to any developmental concerns that are in that area with Marvin Circle that would lead the petitioner to want to have access off Carl versus having it in Marvin Circle?
What do you mean?
Is there anything that's like topography or anything that's difficult in Marvin Circle that would make access off Carl, more advantageous?
So yeah, right now Marvin Circle is not developed, and it's cost prohibitive to build the road to access these lots. And then as far as access off of Carl, there's no sort of weird topography or obstructions or anything in that area. There's about, I'd say, roughly right around 300 feet, maybe 250 feet of frontage for these lots on Carl Street. And there's a driveway on either end of these lots in question. And so there are driveways that have been permitted on either side of these lots on Carl Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And you wish to, any other questions for the petitioner? Hearing none, I understand you will save the rest of your time for a rebuttal.
Thanks. Thank you.
The hearing is now open for public testimony. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward. State and spell your name for the record. Good evening. And there is that power button on the microphone. Oh, yep, there's a little power button.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Hi, thanks for listening to me today. My name's Jack Forshee, F-O-R-S-H-E-E. I've lived on the corner of Marvin Circle and Byron since 1985. I built Marvin Circle with the permission of the municipality. That is a 90,000-pound road. I put the ditch in, I brought in the fabric, I did all the work myself with the okay of the municipality. I would like to know today what precedence is going to result from this meeting. If people are allowed to come in from, have their legal access come in from the backside of a cul-de-sac, that kind of defeats the purpose of a cul-de-sac, in my opinion. But in this case, I've been proven wrong on the law more than once, which is my function for being here. If you do allow access for the backside of these cul-de-sacs, does that still need to be a 90,000-pound fire road? Is it still going to need and require a 90-foot turnaround for the fire truck? Seeing how these folks are crossing fairly large lots to get to their homestead, I would like to know these things. I've got more property in the valley. Some of it's completely undeveloped with future prospects. This is a precedence I would like to understand. Are these roads going to be 90,000-pound roads to within X number of feet of the residents, or does the 90,000-pound road end on Carl? Can anyone answer that for me? Marvin Circle was 90,000 pounds right up to the end of my corner lot. I own 2 lots further down the hill from that I would like to develop. In the future, can I just build a road as far as I need it? A 90,000-pound road? Will you permit me for that? And permits is another issue. It seems that permitting and zoning and different codes and covenants of this particular randomized valley, Bear Valley has its problems, always has. I would like to know what I can expect in the next few years as far as construction goes in Bear Valley. We still going to need permits? We still going to need surveys? Does the road have to go in first, or can it come in after the fact? Can we bring our access in from different adjacent roads? If this sets a precedence in Bear Valley, I counted 5 at least cul-de-sacs in that immediate area that have the same or similar circumstances. If all of those people come in here and ask for the same approach to their property, will it be allowed? Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Forche. Are there any questions from the board to Mr. Forche? Or staff, would you like to respond to any of the questions?
Oh, I would just, through the chair, Mr. Forshee, I would just recommend getting a hold of the municipality and talking with the planning department and private development. And we can probably answer a lot of those questions. There's multiple scenarios that you brought up, and we could kind of fill you in on how those would, the requirements of development for those cul-de-sacs.
Thank you. Can I help you with anything else? Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Forche. Hello.
Oh, it was on. Hello. My name is Isabella Comer, C-O-M-E-R. I own land up in Bear Valley. And I think just kind of wanted to comment on that last bit, being that when I personally have historically pursued the option of building on those lots on Marvin Circle. Granted, they were not the same lots discussed here today. They were different. They did not have that ability to access from Carl. But the point is the same. When I pursued that to build on those lots, I was told from the municipality that I would have to build the road first. I was told I would have to build the whole road, or a 90-pound fire road with the appropriate turnarounds. So to that, I just wanted to acknowledge that my personal experience in pursuing building options up there has been prohibited by exactly what you just said, is when you want to pursue the process and follow it, led to a dead end, because as previously mentioned, it is cost prohibitive. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that I have attempted to follow processes, and as a result have not been able to pursue those options.
Thank you, Ms. Comer. Any questions? All right, hearing none, thank you. Would anybody else from the public like to, oh, please come forward. Oh, Alexi, would you please turn the microphone on up there? There's a little button down on the black panel. Nope, it'll be like this.
Okay,
There
it's
you
better
go.
now. Alexei Voloshin, Aleksey Voloshin. I'm a neighbor of Rachel and Robert, and I would say I have no concerns with them building their driveways off of Carl because, like he said, there's already driveways on either side of those proposed 3 lots. He also owns other they also own other lots and that border on Marvin Circle, but like Right Away said, those would have to get Marvin upgraded in order to access them. So like the other people who had concerns building the fire road and everything, that still applies to their other lots. But these 3 lots were a unicorn that happened to have direct, frontage to Carl Road, and otherwise there shouldn't be any reason for them not to be able to access it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Volsham. Any questions from the board? All right, hearing none, thank you. Would any other member of the public care to come up and... Hello, please come on up.
Is it on?
It is on, yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is George Bryson, Bryson, and I too I've lived in Bear Valley for 40 years, since 1985, and I know Robert and Rachel, and I don't have anything. Our property also abuts Carl, and I know Robert and Rachel as wonderful neighbors. You know, Bear Valley is really a throwback subdivision to an earlier Anchorage where you knew your neighbors and people helped each other. And I just want to justify or stand up for their good character. They're really great neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryson. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you. Any other member from the public wish to come up and speak? At this point in time, would the petitioner care to come up and use the remaining time for a rebuttal to answer any questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wing. At this point, we're going to call the public hearing is now closed. What is the will of the body? What? Oh, may I please have a motion to approve a request to modify plat number 14 on plat 2004-91?
Mr. Chair, could I ask one question of staff, since we've had that testimony?
Yes, for sure.
I'm curious, if Marvin were to be developed by any one of these lots, in question or not in question, is it whoever builds the house first gets to build the road?
Well, through the chair, Mr. Merker, that's a question kind of private development. When we often talk about the rational nexus, yes, there's a threshold. If you have one, that's kind of what Right Away alluded to. There's a permit for a limited access road, which is not like the full standard, but it is a pretty substantial road that has to be built. That's probably what likely, you get one house would have to do the limited access road standard. Once you get past 2, 3 houses, then it becomes, you have to build a full standard road to municipal standards, which gets very expensive. And then on the length, you know, the limited access roadway, once you start driving that length out with turnarounds, it starts to get very expensive as well. And which is part of the reason why we're here tonight, because the cost, once you go past that to the rest of these lots, to build that to a full standard is going to far exceed what the cost of developing those lots are.
And I guess the purpose for my question would really be the precedents that's already been mentioned, because if we do this, this is 3 less lots on a cul-de-sac that, you know, we're basically landlocking, or further landlocking in my view, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots. I would think that this road makes more sense for as many lots as possible, but if we do grant access to Carl for these 3, it's going to make it that much harder for the remaining lots on Marvin.
Well, we're not getting, they could still access if they chose to, as I stated, they can still access Marvin Circle if they decide not to build a driveway off. This is only allowing them the option. So if they go in and develop all 5, they then build it to, or they get all the neighbors together and build a road, then they can all access that Marvin Circle. This will only apply to those 3 lots. But this is kind of a legacy. The whole reason we're here for tonight is the what we call paper plats. That's why now with the subdivisions you guys see before you, that the requirements are to build roads first. So it's not, the burden's not put on 30, 40, 50 years later on the individual homeowners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merca. All right. May I please move to approve case S12793? The motion to approve has been moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Ms. Ploy. Mr. Quinn, would you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you. I move to approve a request to modify plat note 14 on plat 2004-91, page 2 of 6, which reads, quote, lots fronting on cul-de-sac shall have no direct vehicular access to Carl or Nickling streets, to read, quote, access from Carl or Nickling streets from lots that have frontage on cul-de-sacs require approval from Municipal Traffic Engineering Department.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn, for stating the motion. Would you please speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the motion. I agree with staff on it. It sounds like that Carl Street isn't the collector that it was once anticipated to be, and the driveways will still have to be reviewed by the traffic department. Now, with that being said, I do think a couple of things were brought up tonight that a couple of good discussion points that are worth noting. Mr. Merca brought up some definitely good points, but I will say that I'm not as concerned about setting precedent on this because these regulations are out of date now, and there's going to be a couple of straggling cases that come here every so often while we try to clean up the mess of outdated regulations that were placed, 50 years ago. And I think we're just going to have to continue to look at these cases just on a case-by-case basis. I'm not super concerned about the precedent, but I do see why you would be concerned about that. I think that that's valid. And again, to the people that testified, I think that you guys brought up some really good points too. And what I would tell you to do in the future is when you ask the question to whoever it was that you asked and they stated that Marvin had to be improved, that person was correct in saying that because it did have to be approved at that point, and it would still have to be approved if this case doesn't, if it doesn't pass. But what I'd recommend to you is in the future, talk to the planning department, because everyone's going to answer your specific question, as it stands. The planning department can help in that process, and they can say, well, as it stands, this is what you'd have to do. With that being said, maybe we could look into a plat note modification, which could change this subject to what the planning board does. So I understand the frustration there, and I think that you brought up some good points on that, but I'll be supporting the motion based off what staff said, the big two departments being private development and traffic, and they seem to be on board with it, and planning concurs with their thoughts. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Ploy, would you please speak to your motion?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with exactly what Skylar said. He said it pretty well, that maybe we need the development. If this is one way to get it through, might as well do it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ploy. Are there any additional findings?
I have a few additional findings I'd like to add too. So I concur that it meets the requirements set forth in 21.03.200 G9 regarding plat note modifications, and that it would also still be up to traffic to make the final approval on that. And in doing some research on it, like one of the commenters said, there is properties both north and south of this property that have driveways off Carl. So when driving down Carl, it didn't seem like it would be something that would be unusual or out of place. But to the people that spoke tonight, definitely do hear what you're saying. And this is an unfortunate side effect of the paper plotted subdivisions that have kind of are sprinkled around town, where the burden of development then falls within a even smaller pool of people. And that definitely is an unfortunate thing. And I hope that with this development here, if the road is ever developed, they still may assist with that. But obviously that's not something that we can look at tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for the additional findings. At this time, I will call for a vote. The motion to approve case S12793 has passed. 7 yes, 0 no's. At this point in time, I move to, Yep. Would like to have the staff presentation on case S12794.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, as you stated, S12794, Prospector Creek subdivision, lots 1 through 9. So this is a request for the subdivision of one tract of land into 9 lots, and his request is being made to develop the property for future single-family residential dwellings. The petition site is located just north of Jamie Avenue, west of Mountain Air Drive, and north of Sandpiper Drive. The property is zoned R7 SL, and this each proposed lot meets the minimum lot size and site requirements for the R7 Special Limitation Zoning District with a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. Road improvements and dedication. There currently exist within the AMATS Transportation Improvement Program, a project that will ultimately connect Mountain Air Drive to Rabbit Creek Road, which would provide secondary access to this portion of the Anchorage hillside. While funding is secured for design only at this time, planning believes this secondary access connection will be made a priority and that funding will be achieved for the construction. And Mountain Air Drive is identified as a neighborhood collector 1B with a minimum right-of-way width of 70 feet. Mountain Air Driveway is currently dedicated at 65 feet, and staff has requested a condition requiring the petitioner to dedicate 5 feet of right-of-way along the eastern boundary of the proposed subdivision for Mountain Air Drive. The road is currently constructed to a 20-foot strip-paved road with a developed cul-de-sac for emergency vehicle turnaround, which was completed under Plat 2011-62, which subdivided the east side of this large tract. Private development and traffic engineering are not requiring road improvements at this time, and future construction of the AMATS project for Mountain Air Drive will include improvements to the right-of-way, including pedestrian pathways. As the exact alignment and construction of the road is still being designed, planning is not requiring any trail improvements other than the dedication of the right-of-way, which will accommodate any future road and pedestrian improvements for construction and connectivity. In conformance with the adopted plans, this preliminary plat appears to conform with the petitioner's site classification, as well as the following policies of the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan. Land Use Policy 4.1, the subdivision is located within a rural area of the municipality, which will provide additional lots for those seeking a rural, large lot parcel to purchase. The platting action will increase the number of residential lots. Land Use Policy 5.1, the rural development of the subdivision is in keeping with the context of the surrounding neighborhood, and generally reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to the subdivision plat requests. Therefore, staff's recommending approval subject to conditions A1 through 5 found on page 7 and 8 of the staff packet. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we have the petitioner owner here tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the board to staff?
Yes, I have a question. On page 24, the triad report there, it mentions a difference in the wetland area that was defined. Does that, and that mentioned that it was part of, I think it was the watershed management drainage map. So is that something that MOA has to review for additional approval? Has that been done as part of this? I just didn't know if you see a report like that, and it has a different finding than what your watershed map showed. Is that just accepted by the municipality, or is more investigation needed on that?
More investigation will be needed by Watershed Management Services, and I believe the petitioner triad will kind of expand on that for you with the answer as well.
Thank you. One additional question here. With this Mountaineer Drive being classified as a neighborhood collector, I believe Carl in the previous case was also that same thing where driveway access should be limited where it can be or discouraged. So do you know why this development was put in, or I guess done in such a way where it has access to Mountaineer Drive, and it doesn't seem, I mean, with all the properties in that area, they're kind of set up that way. With the difference between the neighborhood collectors can you speak to how that would be different, I guess?
Well, the original design from the previous plats has set up Mountaineer Drive without cul-de-sacs, I believe, due to topography. So every lot will be accessing the Mountaineer Drive in this plat. There's not enough, the way it was previously laid out, to provide any, with topography, to provide any type of cul-de-sacs or anything for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Again, are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, may the petitioner please come forward. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Grant Matthews, M-A-T-H-E-W-S. I'm with Triad Engineering, representing the petitioner. And first off, I'd just like to thank staff for their reports here. Fairly straightforward case, no variances or anything. 19-acre tract that we're subdividing into 9 lots. The zoning would allow for about 18 or 19 lots, but because of some topography, wetlands, streams, we're kind of restricted in how many lots we can fit in here, which is why we're down to that like 2 or a half, 2-acre lots roughly. As Sean mentioned, there's the proposed upgrade to Mountaineer Drive through the AMATS program. The schedule for that, it's currently in design, and then they will move into right-of-way acquisition with funding, and then construction slated for 2027 at this point. We were here a couple years ago, I believe 2 years ago, to subdivide the other side of this, of Mountaineer Drive, Tract B, and we dedicated that 5 foot of right-of-way for that project at that time, or that will help facilitate that project. And then this one will dedicate the other 5 feet, giving the 70 foot of total right-of-way width. So that will be a benefit to that secondary connection project, in that they won't have to do right-of-way acquisition for this piece of that project. Other items, the wetlands, so we had a delineation done, and the wetland area was fairly different than what the Muni map showed. We immediately requested a core audit, basically got the Army Corps of Engineers out there to review and confirm the findings of the wetland delineation. So they came out on site and agreed visually with when we were out there, but we're still waiting for their official determination on that report. But at this point, it looks like that will be accepted, and then the process would update the Muni maps to match that new delineation. I think that's pretty much all I have. I'll save the rest of the time for rebuttal and answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Does the board have any questions for Triad? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at lots like 4 and 5, I guess the buildable area is that southeast corner, and right when you have like when you have the creek or the stream offsets.
Yeah, southwest.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
How? I don't have my scale. Is that sufficient area?
Yeah, those lots are very large. They're 4.3 acres and 3 acres, so it's hard, because this is such a large piece, it looks small, but that's like, it's over an acre, the buildable area on each of those. So yeah, the streams setbacks look, pretty daunting there, but the reality of it is there's over an acre of buildable land. And the reality of it is that those would probably require a shared driveway with a, core permit to cross the stream and then access up and down. But there's good upland buildable area at the back of those lots, and really this is the most, economical way to access it, is just to have large residential lots for those two.
That's it, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any additional questions for Triad? All right, hearing none. I'd like now to open the hearing for public testimony. Are there anyone from the audience wishing to testify in the matter of this case? Please come forward. Hearing none. Mr. Matthews, would you like to use the rest of your time for a rebuttal or not?
I'll just say, I forgot to mention, the only public comment received was regarding concern for secondary access, and that AMAT's project is in process, which will help this whole piece of the Anchorage Hillside.
Mr. Matthews, was that in reference to Tom and Amber Allen?
That's correct, yeah.
Correct. We did read that in the notice here from the packet. Thank you. All right, at this point, the public hearing is now closed. What is the will of the body? I have a motion to approve. Moved by Mr. Merka and seconded by Mr. Jones. To approve a request to subdivide one tract into 9 lots, subject to conditions 1 through 5 on page 7, 8, and 9. Mover, Mr. Merka, can you please state your motion?
Yes, I move to request the subdivide one tract into 9 lots, subject to conditions 1 through 5 on pages 7 and 8.
Mr. Merka, can you please speak to your motion?
Yes, I think that this is a well thought out plat. I think that as described, some of these lots are quite large to accommodate some building area. I think they'll be a great addition to our neighborhood. I have nothing bad to say about this plat. I think it's a great plan, and the secondary access is well underway. So,
thank you, Mr. Merka. Mr. Jones, would you please speak to your motion?
Thank you. Yeah, I would share Mr. Merka's comments on that, and would also add that it appears to meet all dimensional requirements needed for this area. Obviously, the lots are well over the required size needed for this zoning, and it looks like they're doing the best they can with the challenging site conditions there with the stream and the wetlands designation there. So, yeah, some nice, good-sized, large lots. I'm sure there'll be some nice homes built up there. I think it's a good way to develop what's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there any additional findings? Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to address the secondary access. I mean, it does sound like there's a project in place, that AMAT's project, which will help solve that. But I do think it's important that we not always get too held up on secondary access requirements. I mean, there are parts all around the city where secondary access just isn't possible. I mean, if we were to enforce secondary access requirements, then nothing could ever get built in Girdwood. There's parts of Eagle River that would be shut down. The Seward Highway is one way in, one way out from Anchorage to Homer. So while I think it's great that there is a project plan to help address secondary access, I do think it's worth noting that we're going to hear cases in the future where secondary access just isn't possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any additional findings? All right. Well, hearing none, it is time for a vote. The motion has passed. 7 yes, 0 no. Thank you. All right. Again, can I please have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right. Move to adjourn, accepted. Can I get a second to adjourn? I do need a second.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ploy. Oh, Miss Ploy. All right. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned at this time. Sorry.
Way to break in the new members.